Happy New Year, everybody, and hope you're having a good opening week into 2020. And I hope we, as a society and as a species, don't end up screwing this up horribly and careening off into the yawning abyss of cataclysm. Holy shit, we're so screwed. So breaking format here for this new year. I'm not going to be doing my typical top 10 movies of 2019 and my worst 10 movies of 2019 because this year I actually kind of reined in a lot on watching movies that were recent. So I don't feel I have enough entries to warrant putting together a top 10 or a worst 10. And I didn't put myself in the position to view movies that I thought would tend to infuriate or antagonize me with regards to their structure or themes or things like that. So I have no worst 10 list. There's only really one movie this year that pushed all the wrong buttons. Spoiler alert, it was Loquisha, and rightly so. So what I decided to do was instead kind of provide a quick review and catch up on all of the movies that I didn't give specific video logs or video reviews for in 2019. I'm just going to run down, starting in early 2019, some of the movies that I didn't mention on here before and just give my 2 cents about each of them. Okay, first off, the documentary Fire that was on Netflix. You'll notice there's going to be a lot of Netflix movies on here because, frankly, Netflix is my new movie theater. Fire was about the Fire Festival that took place a couple years back and all of the shenanigans and horrible production and preparation and fallout that happened due to it. So it got really in depth with regards to what actually transpired, what actually was going on behind the scenes with regards to the company runners and the guys who were managing the actual festival, the testimonials of the horrible situations involved in the actual festival and the living spaces and all that nasty stuff. They get into some details about that, but also kind of the ramifications of how this is basically a morality tale on biting off more than you can chew, especially if your heart isn't having the best of intentions when it comes to it. I enjoyed Fire Festival quite a bit, or I enjoyed, not Fire Festival, I enjoyed the documentary Fire quite a bit. I thought it provided a very objective and even-keeled representation of its subject matter very well, like a documentary should. Next up, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile. This was another one dumped onto Netflix. This was the Ted Bundy, but Ted Bundy with a heart of gold because he's played by Zac Efron. Yeah, this was a very by-the-numbers type of true crime biopic. Didn't really offer much more with regards to it. And yeah, there's a little bit of some imbalance there when you have heartthrob Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy. Now, I know Ted Bundy was, in real life, an actual handsome man and everything like that, but, you know, when you get into playing just how charming and suave and sophisticated it is, which, granted, he might have been as well, but this movie, I feel, tends to favor more of like, oh, he's just a misunderstood misanthrope. Not at all this monster that butchered women. They do try to give some underlying darkness to it, but I think, honestly, Zac Efron is a little bit too much in his wheelhouse of being likable, charming, all-Americana boy that it comes across as unintentionally imbalanced because he is way too charming, way too sweet-looking, and so forth, that any and all possible malicious or darker elements that they're trying to play with in the film are immediately brushed aside because Efron's just so sweet-looking. Otherwise, performance-wise, it's okay. I think Sheldon shows up from Big Bang Theory. He's pretty good. I honestly, the further back I realized, I don't remember a lot that went on in some of these movies, but I do remember just kind of feeling very bored at the expense of Extremely Wicked. Next up, The Great Hack, another documentary, but this time showcasing and talking a little bit more about the data hoarding that was being conducted by companies such as Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, and talking about how that could have played a very integral part into the 2016 election and beyond, and talking about what happened to everyone involved, from some of the major legal counsels involved to the whistleblower and kind of the jeopardy she found herself in from from a professional but also a personal standpoint. I feel it does a fairly decent job of maintaining objectivity, much like Fire did when it came to being able to present facts, being able to present testimonials, compelling enough testimonials from the parties involved, but at the same time not really giving its hand away either way as to where it wants you to feel about that particular moment in American history and beyond. It's not like we're not feeling the ramifications of it now. We're so screwed. Next up, Velvet Buzzsaw, the psychosexual, trippy, surrealistic horror slasher film. I really couldn't figure on a particular way to describe it, so I just incorporated all the ways to describe it. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Rene Russo, Toni Collette. There are moments in this movie that I thought could have been really kind of atmospheric, good horror, and then there's stuff that's straight up silly. From what I recall, it involves this man who passed away in his apartment. His collection of paintings and artworks are to be gathered up, and this ambitious kind of art collector and curator wants to display them, gets involved in a relationship with Jake Gyllenhaal, who is the highlight of the movie in my opinion, because he is doing his best to portray this overly self-important, self-aggrandizing, pretentious art critic, and they get involved in some mystery and must stay alive in order to uncover what's going on with these supernatural paintings and all the mysterious ways in which people who transgress against said paintings or said artwork end up dying, like in stupid ways. There's trippy visuals. With a little bit of reworking, could actually be a really kind of creepy, suspenseful, atmospheric type of horror thriller without giving away too much of its inherent silliness. But not nearly as interesting as it would be if it was more, I guess, psychological based and less rooted in the supernatural. Again, that's more just what I was kind of hoping for out of the movie, but for what it was able to accomplish, it was okay. Next up, Booksmart. One of my favorite movies of the year, honestly, in which these are just two socially stunted but very academic and overachieving girls who want to be able to give into their more wild side and have an actual kind of opportunity to socialize with their peers, to actually connect and see what this whole high school thing was about before graduation. So it does follow them on one last like hurrah that takes them to all kinds of different shenanigans and parties. It is wild and crazy, and the two leads are really good. They're really phenomenal actresses, and I bought into their sisterhood, I guess you would say, or their friendship. One of the girls has to kind of grapple with her, self-perception and the fact that she thought she was above all these people because she was such an overachiever, but kind of realizing just how isolating that feeling can be. There's her friend who is struggling with, not just her being able to figure out her identity outside of her friendship with her, but also trying to kind of figure out her identity overall. The other characters, the tertiary high school kids in this movie, weren't stereotypical high school archetypes. At first they set them up to make it seem like that's where they're going, but then they actually turn out to be real people, and they live and react to the events around these main characters the way real people would. It's not like, oh, well, we got to show the dumb jock who's actually top dog. Like, these are just kids, regular high school kids. So Olivia Wilde, her directing debut, I believe. I could be wrong, but I do believe this was her first movie that she actually directed. I want to see more from Olivia Wilde. Give Booksmart all the love. It is a phenomenal bit of comedy and heartfelt coming-of-age drama. Shazam! It's fine. It's funny. It's different in regards to the fact that it finally kind of reined in the world-ending stakes of DC films as of late, so I'm okay with it. Zachary Levi, good choice for the lead. It's okay. Hellboy. David Harbour's really good as Hellboy. I'd like to see him as Hellboy when they decide to give this back to Guillermo del Toro, if he wants it. Do you want it, Mr. del Toro? It kind of needs you. Detective Pikachu. I know nothing about Pokemon, really, other than Pikachu is, like, everyone's favorite, and he's voiced by everyone's favorite, Ryan Reynolds, in this. The visual effects are good. Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu is good. Justice Smith is fine, I guess. The twists, I saw him coming a mile away, and even though I know nothing about the world of Pokemon, I was able to Car alarm. Detective Pikachu. It sets off car alarms. Sure. Brightburn. Dark Superman story. You could just cut this in with Man of Steel and it totally makes sense. Okay. Not really any suspense there when you going in. Your whole premise is centered around the fact that, oh, you're witnessing the birth of a villain, actually. And it's produced by James Gunn, master of pretty much giving you the darkest ending possible, except when it's a Disney-related property. Elizabeth Banks and David Denham, Roy from The Office, do a really good job as sort of downgraded Ma and Pa Kent, rightly terrified of this creepy kid. And the little kid does really well for being terrifyingly creepy. No big shocks or big surprises coming into this. The scares honestly weren't that scary. The grotesqueness, it's nothing that you haven't seen in a James Gunn related product to begin with. It's okay. It's a good way to kill time for about 90 minutes, I'm guessing. The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse was a phenomenal sit. I really, really enjoyed everything about this film. The murky, just disgusting atmosphere of it, the stark contrast that the black and white aesthetic offers it. The performances by Dafoe and Pattinson are phenomenal. Some of the finest acting I've seen from either of these gentlemen in a long time. Dafoe just farting everywhere. It's a very gas-heavy film. Spoilers. So many ways you can interpret this movie, talking about the struggles of like isolation, even talking to some extent, I felt, on a level about alcoholism and repeating patterns of recovery and relapse and so forth. I felt I was digging in a little bit, and that's the sign of a good movie, when you start digging in a little bit more than just skin deep. But without a doubt, it is anchored in such a wonderful black and white aesthetic and these two awesome lead performances, and does not pull punches on its grotesque spectacles at time, whether it's just absurd-ass dream sequences or the horrible things that happen to seagulls in this movie. It's a rootin' tootin' good time. And I mean rootin' tootin' as in plenty of Dafoe farts. Parasite. I am so happy I got to see this movie. This was what I wanted out of a very deep-seated psychological thriller that doesn't have to be playing up too many like shock value moments. There's few and far between. The big escalation in the film doesn't really happen until about the last 10 minutes. The rest of it is just playing upon anxiety upon anxiety. When is this family of basically con artists gonna be found out, if they'll be found out? What is actually going on with this family that they're kind of taking up some residency with and taking advantage of? What's going on with the housekeeper? The setting, the production design on this film is really tremendous too. Going from the slums to that become flooded at one point, just disgusting with refuse and everything like that the family has to wade through, to this really refined, like eerily sanitized mansion that this family lives in. And everything about this movie just kept me like on the edge of like, I have no idea where this is gonna go now. Even when I thought I had it figured out where the turn was gonna be and reveals were taking place, no, more reveals, more turns, and I wasn't sick of them. It didn't feel like, oh, well, we're just throwing this reveal now on top of it as a last minute effort to just shock you. No, it felt all organic, felt all earned. Cheers, Parasite. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I finally got to see Quentin Tarantino's magnum opus that loses its mind in the last half hour. I really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Don't get me wrong. It's Quentin's style at its finest. It's some of the best acting and performances I've seen from Brad Pitt. I've seen from Leo. I liked Margot Robbie in this quite a bit as Sharon Tate. But yeah, the last half hour goes full Tarantino banana pants. It's well done. It just seems like just a wild departure from everything that was set up in the previous 2 hours of the film. I get a kick out of it just for the pure craft that Tarantino puts into his more outlandish sequences. But in terms of its cohesion with the rest of the movie, I felt it wasn't needed or really warranted at that point. But I still recommend the movie. It's still a great outing for Tarantino and company. Godzilla King of the Monsters. I don't think I talked about this. I might have. I know I wrote a Never Ending Radical Dude article about it. It tried to do a little bit more of what Gareth Edwards' Godzilla seemed kind of ashamed or shy of doing, which was, let's show Godzilla in all his full glory, battling Ghidorah, battling Mothra. I love that Rodan in this is a very subservient, like Iago-ish type of character to King Ghidorah. Yes, master, whatever you wish. I guess that's more Peter Lorre than anything else, but basically going, yes, master, oh, kill Godzilla, will do. Rodan is such a kiss-ass in this movie. My one complaint, don't make Rodan such a kiss-ass. I guess. Yeah, it tends to favor the human side of the story more, which at least this time there was a little bit more going on in terms of personalities and in terms of emotional stakes for these characters. It's not like, oh, Bryan Cranston is the only character who gives a shit and he's dead a third of the way into the film. No, at this point it's got Vera Farmiga, who can't go wrong because Vera Farmiga is the best. Millie Bobby Brown does really well playing Eleven in here. That dude from Friday Night Lights, I never remember his name, but he's that dude from Friday Night Lights. Anyone else excited to see Godzilla kick King Kong's ass? You know who I got. Dark Phoenix. Or X-Men Dark Phoenix, but this franchise wouldn't want you to know it's connected to X-Men because it thinks it might have a chance. I'm guessing this is what the movie The Darkest Minds was about. It felt like kind of the exact same movie. Even though I didn't see Darkest Minds, that's how sure I am of that. As a last-ditch whimper for the Fox X-Men franchise before they were absorbed into the mouse, it was fine. It's nothing grand or great. It's nothing god awful, honestly. Sophie Turner, with the material she had to do, she was fine. I look forward to her career with great interest. That's an episode 1 line. I may have revisited The Phantom Menace recently. Don't judge. James McAvoy, Fassbender, A-game as always. They are bringing a lot to the table, even when there's nothing on the table worth chowing down on. Jennifer Lawrence, spoilers, she finally got out of these movies, and it shows on her face like she can't wait to get to that scene. Boy, oh boy. But no, I mean, there's not much really to kind of say about Dark Phoenix at this point. It's just this kind of really quiet afterthought now that we know, like, oh, it's the end of that era of Fox films, but they kind of peaked already with a certain movie that, I don't know, had genuine human emotions and a genuinely compelling character arc and made me cry like a baby at the end of it. Midsommar. Solid follow-up to Hereditary, Ari Aster. Kind of predictable. I don't think anything's going to beat Hereditary in terms of some of the horrific imagery that takes place in there. This one's trying for it at times, but I definitely left the movie with a Wicker Man vibe. It's even got a bear costume. You know, there's really not much surprise to what happens to these kids backpacking across Europe and happen to stop off at this commune that one of them is from. But I liked what was also going on with regards to the relationship dynamics between the lead girl and her boyfriend, how it's kind of, you're watching a relationship reach its end. And it reaches its end both thematically and literally, and I get it. Theme is a little bit more on the nose than I would have liked from the guy who brought me Hereditary, but it's still effective. The acting's still good. The visual palette is really kind of stunning. It's a nice stark contrast to Hereditary with all its gloomy darkness and dreariness. This has got bright, vibrant colors because it's set, you know, in the countryside. It's got a lot of symmetry involved in it, which I'm like, I get it, but it is at least shot very well, acted very well. Set design is pretty spectacular. It's fine. It's fine. Spider-Man Far From Home. It's okay. Jake Gyllenhaal finally got into a Spider-Man movie. He's kind of the best thing about the movie. Tom Holland's great. Zendaya's great. Everyone's great. Solid action, solid laughs, solid theme for this MCU Spidey. Doesn't really make me curious to see any more Marvel movies, so it failed on the company side of things. Dolomite Is My Name. As someone who's a fan of Dolomite and the Human Tornado, I was looking forward to this movie. This is a triumphant bit of work for Eddie Murphy. I got a lot of Ed Wood vibes off of this film. I really did like it quite a bit. It's got kind of that wholeheartedness that Ed Wood had with regards to, we're going to put on a show. We're going to make this possible because dreams make it possible. I'm sure it wasn't all through and through that altruistic in real life, but I loved kind of the theme that cut throughout this whole movie of the never give up attitude, because that's what a lot of, struggling beginning filmmakers are like. Eddie Murphy acting his heart out on this. He's funny, like Rudy Ray Moore funny and Eddie Murphy funny all at once, and it works. Wesley Snipes is without a doubt the highlight of the movie for me. He is so great, so over the top, but not too over the top to the point that it becomes, grating. He is unbelievably refined, and just some subtle movements that he does throughout this movie are just so great. But this is I felt it was being a very honest biopic, but also being very, warm-hearted towards its subject matter, which was, this down-and-out kind of comedian who became something of a schlockmeister and became a cult icon, a beloved cult icon. Dolomite and the Human Tornado, despite their technical setbacks for them being just, not big-budget movies, they are entertaining films. And this is an entertaining film about making those entertaining films. So check out all three of those things. And maybe throw in Petey Wheatstraw for good measure, because Petey Wheatstraw is kind of great too. The Irishman. Again, this is another longtime filmmaker at the top of their craft and skills. Don't know if it needed to be as long as it was, but that time actually kind of flew by well for me. De Niro, Pesci, Pacino as Hoffa. I think they all turn in really solid performances, some of their best later work. The CGI to de-age all these actors, not that apparent. And every once in a while, the trick is given away. There's just something off about the way the lips move, or there's just something off with regards to skin and how, it rests on the face. But otherwise, not too noticeable and not distracting at all. And, it's a storytelling tool here. It's not like, I hate to keep bringing it up, it's not like Rogue One with resurrecting someone who we know to be clearly dead. Another solid Scorsese entry. Like I said, for me, the time flew by. I don't know if that will be the case for everybody, but I never really noticed time flying by when it comes to Scorsese movies. And finally, Terminator Dark Fate. I feel weird kind of wrapping things up on a very meh movie for me. There's things I do like about Dark Fate. I like Mackenzie Davis. I like the character they set up for her as this human-machine hybrid. I just wish she didn't have to fall into the Kyle Reese T-800 from T2 role, where it is, gotta save the chosen one. Go back in time and save the chosen one, because that's what Terminator always does, except for the one movie. Let's be honest, there just needs to be 2 movies. This doesn't need to be a long-standing franchise, people. Let it die at Judgment Day. You get the theme of what's at stake. You get the idea of what these movies are about within the first 2, and that's all that needs to be said. I never thought Terminator or Ghostbusters needed to be long-standing franchises. There's interesting elements at play in the movie. By far, my favorite was Mackenzie Davis. It's just a shame they gave her kind of a stock role. I would love to see something similar, her play something similar in another franchise, but this time you just shed all the Terminator kind of skins and all the trappings of a Terminator movie at this point and just let her do her own thing. In fact, I wish I could go back in time and convince James Cameron to terminate any potential franchise ideas at T2. But that's not going to happen because James Cameron likes people asking for his seal approval on stuff, so even if it's garbage. So looking forward to those Avatar sequels, buddy. So those are all the movies that I did not cover in 2019. Let me know which of these movies, if you saw any of them, were your favorites. Let me know what you thought of them. Let me know what some of your favorite movies of the year were. I know I didn't get to all of them. I didn't get to Knives Out. I need to get to Knives Out, though. I've been hearing great stuff. But maybe I'll give my thoughts on that at a later time. But until then, thank you all for checking out my wrapping up 2019 video, whatever I'll call this. I'm not really sure. Subscribe, ring the bell, whatever the hell we're supposed to be doing now. Be strong, everyone. We're only a week in.